Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Kenneth Price, and this is Sunday, November 20th, and I'm on the East Coast, so it's high noon. It's 12:02 on the East Coast. This is our Sunday morning Zoom call for the ministry I'm hosting, psychiatricsobriety.com. I advertise it as 9 a.m. Pacific time, so it doesn't matter. I'm 12 o'clock, high noon, Eastern time, wherever time zone you're at. Sometimes you get people in the UK. I don't know what time they're at. I do 2 Zoom calls. We do. Well, I host, but we have 2 Zoom calls every week. We have one 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sundays, 5 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. And why do we do these? We do them because we have to. We do them because we want to. We do them because someone has got to. Let me just give you my brief narrative. Hi, everyone. Everyone's saying hi, but I got to get my 5-minute introduction out of the way. And I've gone through this. By the way, this is our 87th Zoom call. It's being recorded for YouTube. And I do this introduction every time because I spent 25 years of my life in the mental health system. We're not here to judge the mental health system. We're not here to protest the mental health system. We're here to anchor a higher, improved, a more accurate model. That's how I'm trying to put it into some very spiritual New Age language that'll get us out of the cul-de-sac that we've all found ourselves in. Basically, in a nutshell, I spent 25 years of my life in psychiatry on countless psych meds, including benzodiazepines, trying to fix a problem I never had in the first place. What we do in this ministry is we dive deep. We basically dive deep. We're here to rethink the entire model, basically. And because it's a ministry, we do this with a higher power. Mine came from grace. Mine came from a lot of hard work, but ultimately the hard work led me towards grace, which led me to a spiritual awakening, which popped me out of that narrative, that painting, that stage play, that dream character. I was able to see it from above the battleground, from the forest, from the trees. And I began to realize that I wasn't the one having the mental illness. It was a huge game changer. It was honor about that I discovered who I was. And with that new reference point, I started unbelieving not only mental illness, I started unbelieving the medication too. And once I started unbelieving those 2 vital components, then I started surrendering my medications. And then suddenly I didn't heal from mental illness like people would like to believe. I simply found a higher truth, and the mental illness I was no longer a vibrational match to all that. That's what we do in this ministry. We anchor these higher narratives that can bring us that vibrational match, which will, in my story, the mental illnesses, they simply fell away. So because I'm dealing with what's called the medically injured community, I have to add a few disclaimers before every Zoom call, because we don't tell people to get off their medications. We don't know what's right for you. And if you are going through a withdrawal, we're going to love you and we're going to hold a higher truth for you. But we generally prefer not to chase after symptoms. That's what makes this Zoom call kind of unique. If you are having symptoms, please come in here. Please absorb our light. Please absorb our experience, strength, and hope. Because most of us who have come off those psych meds, we went through horrible withdrawals too. I went through some horrible withdrawals. Jodi's on board. She went through horrible withdrawals. Mine didn't need to be horrible. If I had anchored this spiritual platform to begin with, I could have avoided a lot of horrible. And that maybe answers the first question. Why am I doing this ministry? So you don't have to go through horrible. Okay. So it's not a Christian ministry. It's not a religious ministry. We're not telling you we're not going to give you any more beliefs, in other words. We're here to untangle the beliefs that got us caught here on the first. This is very complicated, but just if you're watching this on YouTube, stick with the narratives. We've got some really sharp cookies on board, and watch what we do here. So the reason I am looking at my iPhone right now is because I start off every one of these Zoom calls with the healer's prayer. I'm a Course in Miracles student. If you don't know what A Course in Miracles is, stick around for the next hour. You're going to hear a lot of Course in Miracles language. You may, but this is the healer's prayer, comes directly from A Course in Miracles. We are here only to be truly helpful, and we are here to represent him or her who sent us. We do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he or she who sent us will direct us. We are content to be wherever he or she wishes, knowing he or she goes there with us. And we will be healed as we let him or her teach us how to heal. Basically, what this prayer is saying is that once we get connected, we will get our instructions, not from a doctor, not from a preacher, not from a priest. We will get our instructions from our higher power, our higher self, our intuition. That's what makes this differently unique. If someone comes to me asking me a question, I'm going to ask them to take it to their higher power. What we do here is we use this hour to find that higher power. It's a ministry. All right, I've said too much. Hi, Jodi. Hi, Chris. And hi, Craig. Who wants to start us off this morning? I'm in Ohio doing a remodel project. My office is now my workshop. Got two smiles on board. I don't know where Greg's smile went. All I see is gray walls. How you doing, Jodi? It's been a couple of weeks. I think it's been a couple of weeks. Got to unmute yourself. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, it's been a few weeks. Life is intense. My life, for a very long time was intensely awful, and now it's intensely amazing. And it's quite different, and really awesome. So I got a lot going on, and I'm happy to be here. I try not to counter what Kenneth says, because I love what Kenneth says. But I do want to say that if you are having symptoms specifically, I invite you to connect with me, because I have a different system I come at. My journey is very similar, but very different at the same time. So that's my invite.
Perfect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave Jodi, I'm going to leave her a link to her contact in the description line below the YouTube channel. So absolutely, I know what I'm good at, and Jodi knows what she's good at. Jodi and I have been teaming up for she's one of the founders of this ministry. Don't give me any credit. So yeah, if you're having symptoms, I highly invite you to go down into the description and click on the link for Jodi, and you'll get yeah. Thanks for the invitation, Jodi. We got somebody new on board. We got somebody, Brian R. Brian R. There's Brian. Hey, Brian, you've been on here before. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I have one other time, I believe. I'm hanging in there. Are we? I don't know what we're doing so far. Are we checking in, or we just
we're doing whatever needs to be done. If it just check in. I have no structure. I do not have outlines for these Zoom calls, and every single Zoom call, all 87 of them so far, have been a phenomenal success because I haven't been doing any planning. So I keep it an open forum.
Sure. Well, I guess psychiatric sobriety is kind of the title. So to me, I guess what that would say is I take a harm reduction stance socially when it comes to people needing medications or whatever. But for myself personally, I always felt they were foreign to me. SSRIs, antipsychotics, all those different things. They've always been a foreign entity to me, and I never liked having to take them, and I think that my body always told me that. Anyways, so I don't know where I'm going with that. That's just my short, I guess, my thinking part of myself about how I feel about medication. So personally, I don't like them. Horrible 3-year or almost 4 years now bout with benzodiazepines. I've been on SSRIs. SSRIs coming off of them were always a cakewalk for me compared to the benzos. They were really easy to come off. And I've come off multiple ones. But benzos, wicked, evil, fucking awful, as maybe people know here, or have heard others talk about it. So I'm still kind of coming away from that. So what has recently kind of, I think in a nutshell, what has been going on with me is I've had to take 5 courses of antibiotics in the last 2 years. And I don't know about anybody else, but either I have a hypersensitivity towards it, or I am part of a population that just is really affected by it. I know some people can take antibiotics and get through it, but they really mess up my microbiome, and they have messed it up. And we have, you know, neurotransmitters in that area too, and it's the other brain, as they say. You know, they always say to be very with your autonomy, be focused on your mind, your heart, and your gut. That's always stood out to me. So my gut's all messed up, and it's making me moody. It's causing major brain fog. And I actually, what happened is I injured my stomach because of the probiotics or the antibiotics I had to take. I injured my stomach taking an NSAID aspirin, and it gave me erosions, like ulcer erosions on my stomach. So I had to take a medication to block the acids, you know, for that. And it was just, it was like one situation happened and it unfolded another situation. And so as soon as I came off that medication, after another course of antibiotics, like I said, this is my 5th course, I had to take antibiotics. Also, the major thing I'm missing about this is I had to take nine months of antibiotics last year for an infection. So that's what really did me in. Anyways, so what I'm getting to, my point is that getting off this last medication for those erosions on my stomach sent me back. It's like my body remembered the trauma from benzos, and it fucking threw me back into benzo withdrawal. It was like for 3 days straight. And I was like, and it was like the psychological stuff from it. The cognition stuff is going on, major brain fog for me. The fight or flight stuff, a lot of the adrenal and cortisol. Oh man, it's just, that's, in a nutshell, that's just what I've been dealing with. And I appreciate being able to come in here and vent about it, because that's kind of what I'm doing. I think that's kind of a wrap for me. Yeah, thank you.
Right, Brian, you're in a good place. I walked a mile in your shoes, and you got Jodi right next to you. And right before you came on, she made an invitation for others to reach out to her. This is peer support, buddy.
Thank you. Okay.
Use us as your lighthouses. You know, we're your lighthouses. And this is the storm. You know, when we get caught in the storm, and we just got. I'm a boater from way back. You know, stay at the helm. You know, follow the light. You know, it's stormy seas. My storm's always passed, and I was better off for them. And this is the same narrative Jodi's got. Jodi, do you want to speak to Brian? Because like, I see you doing this.
Yeah, and I wanted to put my hand up several times, but I just wanted to listen and allow him to finish what he had to say. My first thought is to invite you to remember to not get into victimhood with all of this stuff that's going on, and to remember your power. So the really great thing about the microbiome is it's very replenishable. There's lots of things that you can be doing to replenish your microbiome that will help you with your cognitive symptoms. And I totally invite you, this is not the space for it, but I totally invite you afterwards and later to connect with me, and we can discuss more of that, Brian.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I have been taking proactive measures for that too.
Excellent.
Thank you, Jodi.
Welcome.
How's Chris doing this morning? It's this afternoon here. I think you're on the
Yeah.
West Coast, aren't you?
I am. Yep. Yeah, I'm outside of LA. Yeah, it's the morning, but things are doing. I'm doing well. I mean, it's strange. I had this thought the other day that just a bit of my backstory, since I don't often share it, but I'm coming off of Paxil after being put on it when I was 10 years old, and tried to get off it in high school, tried to get off it in college once before, with horrible results. It sent me back to reinstating. And then when I hit 30, I doubled my dose. That made things horrendously worse. And here I am at 34. I'm like 19 months into tapering off of Paxil, still on a low dose, but just lowering a little bit every few weeks. And I had this thought the other day that, just every time I drop in dose, there's this another cycle of withdrawals, and it's just like this long journey. And all of a sudden I realized the other day that I've been kind of like waiting for that other shoe to drop, like things to get worse. And I've been waiting and like fending off withdrawals, and I've been kind of in this like defensive stance. And I realized again, just the other day, that I've been in that stance for a few months, and it's like, oh yeah, things are actually like pretty good. I think I've gone through so much during this journey. I'm starting to see the benefits of like what I've learned, different coping mechanisms, and really just like an acceptance, of like the good and bad that comes with coming off these pills. So yeah, just big transformations. And the latest, I think I shared this in a recent meeting, but I'm a creative person. I like to draw and write music and paint. And Kenneth, you shared something a couple weeks ago about how during your withdrawals there was a period where that all kind of left you. And I'm kind of experiencing that lately, just like new shifts where things I was once interested in, my interests have shifted, and I'm having trouble reconnecting to certain aspects of myself. But it is what it is. I'm trying to just kind of take it in stride and just ride this crazy wave.
I think this might be an appropriate time to share, with the group, because Chris and Brian are both coming, down off the medications. What is happening in my story now that I've been off these? My last pill was probably like February of 2016. I don't have the exact date, but anyway, and everyone knows that when I surrendered my last pill, I went on a vision quest. Okay, so what's going on? My mother had passed in 2006. And the tears, the grief, I couldn't grieve. I was still on the pills. Let's fast forward to 2022. I'm in Ohio and I'm doing a remodel project for my spiritual community. I can cry now. I can feel my emotions. This is a miracle, at age 55 to be going through the completion of my grief process. There were so many symptoms that I had that were all over the map that couldn't be chased after. If I chased after one symptom, it would, two more would pop up. It was like whack-a-mole, that game we used to play, the video arcade games as kids. This is why I said in the very beginning, when I went deep and started to reconnect, it's hard work. When you're coming off these medications, the shadow is just going to come out like Jack in the Box. That's why I host these. I want to give a container for all of this. We think they're demons. We've been taught by psychiatry these are demons. Well, I like to switch the narrative. I like to reframe things. I want to call it shadow work. Okay, once we call it shadow work, now it goes from a negative to a positive, and we're all on a spiritual vision quest. But as I can shed these authentic man tears, and and shed them with someone who can hold. I had to call a mighty companion this morning, hold the container space for me. What's going on? That's why I call this peer support. We do this with others. Something shifted inside of me, and my light came back. That's the light that I was telling you about, Brian. You know, I use the analogy, you're a mariner on shore and you're caught in a category 5. Yeah. That's the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, by the way. Jodi just counseled, the word victim. And this is your Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, buddy. You know, warriors are not unicorns and rainbows, everything's la 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 la. No, warriors had to go through hell. Okay. I went through hell. Jodi went through hell. So we've got a level of agape love, which is not to coddle in any way, because no one coddled me. And what our level of agape love is, we know what's true about you, Brian. We know what's truer than the storm that the brain chemistry, is inside of. And we're going to hold that. That's when I talk about the light on shore, the light is actually inside of you. That's what I found. These medications, may have kept me from, never mind the medications, but without the medications, stuff came up. I'm a plumber, it was like I took a rotor-rooter and dislodged the clog. All the sewage came out. It's a pretty disgusting analogy. But then the water that started to flow clear. And this is what we all want. We all want the water to flow clear. That's why I started this ministry. Once I started to see clear water, it didn't happen all at once. But once the first sight of clear water, I knew that there was more and more and more. And by the way, Brian, I'm better off now because of my psychiatric parable. If it hadn't have been for all those withdrawals, Beloved's not here to correct me. She always will. But I would have grown up to be because I'm smart and I'm educated, and I'm pretty talented. I would have grown up to be shallow. These dark, I call it dark forest, but still that can put a negative connotation on it. I prefer the word cocoon. Why? Because cocoon, between the caterpillar and the butterfly. This is what makes this ministry different from a lot of the benzo withdrawal Facebook pages. I want my old life back. I want my old life back. Well, no, you don't. You don't want to be a healed caterpillar. It's ridiculous. And so if it takes, a horrible, withdrawal going through, antibiotics and benzodiazepines, so be it. We've had people throughout history who have gone through, horrible, people coming out of concentration camps, and they've gone on to lecture and they've gone on to be way showers and change agents because they survived Auschwitz. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Brian. I know that this is probably about on the par of Auschwitz. You're talking to someone here, and Jodi's all wrapped up. She went through Auschwitz too. So anyway, doing great, buddy. It's just I want to thank you for showing up. Thank you. And I also want to thank my mighty companion Gemma for showing up. She can unmute herself. Or do I ask one?
Can I say something real quick?
Go for it.
Just I think we also have to be just really careful though of not gaslighting our struggles, or gaslighting our, I'm trying to find the right words here.
Gaslighting's a good word. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, because for me, when I heard you say, for us to not go, like, what did you say in particular? It was something about not wanting our old life back. That's the one I struggle with, is that I regress to my old life, and I find myself wanting it back. So I actually am in a confusion with where I'm at, probably because for me, there's a song that I grew up loving by this band, and it's called Regress No Way, and it's about not regressing into your past. So it's, I'm not finding the right words right now to describe what I'm trying to say, but I just think there's a gentleness and a carefulness that has to proceed with this, that and a validation, not invalidating where we come from, because our past is like significant. It's like, I'm a historian nerd, like early American history, the real history, not candy coated George Washington history in 7th grade we learned. I mean, indigenous slaughter, murder, pillage, what this country is fucking founded on. Like, that is history. And so I learned from the past. I believe the past is something that affects the future. Like all the politics that go into, I'm not going to get political, but just all the politics that you could muster up that are ugly in history, that we can use to change by knowing that past. If we
can we bring this back to, let's try and I'm gonna see if we can compartmentalize. Do you want to make
Sure.
I heard gaslighting, and as soon as I heard that, I got an intuitive hit. Do you want to massage this Zoom call and go in that direction? Because I certainly would I certainly appreciate if someone feels they're being gaslit. I want them to speak up. How about that, folks? Anybody want to talk about gaslighting? Brian's bringing up some good stuff, by the way. We've been going heavy on the spiritual, components, and maybe this Zoom call ought to be for some of the down and dirty, triage. Anybody want to touch on some of this?
Yeah, I'll share something that brought up in me. And I don't know if this is what you're talking about or not, Brian, but like lately I've had this thought of, because of how much struggle I went through, both with being on the pills at different times, but then initially my first year of coming off, so horrible. I feel like that has helped me kind of get to this other side. I feel like these days I'm on the other side of it a little bit. And I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for surviving that horrible period. I don't think, I wouldn't want to invalidate it in any way. I think actually, because it was so terrible, it helps me really be thankful for where I'm at. But but I also am in maybe a slightly unique position where I don't know what my old life is going back to. I was on the pills for so long, I don't remember never not being on the pills. But I don't know. I think another thing that was touched on, you mentioned history, and other people have mentioned just what humans are capable of when it comes to strength and resilience. It's like that's within us all. We all have that chance to cultivate that strength and resilience. I always thought other people were strong. Wow, look at what strong people can do. And now I kind of see it as wow, look what people can do. And if some people can rise to certain challenges, that means I can as well. And I don't know if that's what you mean, but when you bring up gaslighting, I agree, we should not gaslight it, we should not sugarcoat it. But it's also we shouldn't wallow in it. We should realize it was a really tough thing that we either went through or are currently going through, and that will produce a stronger version of ourselves on the other end, wherever that ends up being.
What I love about this Zoom call is I get to see Hollywood squares. Well, not completely, because we only got 6 and I got 2 rows of 3, but I see Chris on one end and I see Brian on the other. And I'm going to combine these two. Brian brought in history, and and Chris mentioned that humans are capable of strength and resilience. And that's what I want to learn from history is how humans have been capable of overcoming great insurmountable odds. Was it Nelson Mandela was in jail for, how many years? He did not let him break. He did not let that break his spirit. Speaking of resilience, let's bring in either Greg or Gemma. Neither one of them have shared yet, and we're already into the first half, the first half, beyond the first half. So Gemma's got her hand raised, but do you need to unmute do I need to unmute you or do you unmute yourself? Gemma, there you are.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a parable from my own family, actually, because they were in Germany. They escaped the Holocaust. Some of my family died in it. There's a book written about it, about my great auntie. And I remember when I first started doing family constellations and things to do with lineages of, past the family, and I used to think of it like, oh, I've inherited all this trauma from the past. But now, after reading her story, Liesl, I met her. I was in her house when I was younger, and she literally someone who moved to Germany. She saved our family. She's the reason I'm alive, because she moved to London, and then this was before the war actually had got worse, and they before they were killing the Jews and other people as well, homosexuals and everybody that they didn't like. Yeah, it's like I got distracted because I was saying, yeah, what I'm saying is that her resilience, she came over, she loved art. So they had letters to the family, and she wanted to do art, as in have work with art. She had loads and loads of pictures of art. She didn't do the art herself, but she ended up working in London with art, and she worked with refugees. And I think reading her story of resilience, and like when she died as well, like her last, she started speaking in her language, and it was like that was her home, but it was taken away from her. But then when she died, she was able to go back home. And I just think it's such a beautiful story and such a lovely parable. And I think that's what I want to remember from my family, that they survived and they got through it. And that's why I'm here, partly why I'm here anyway, on one half of the side of the family. And whatever struggles I'm going through right now, cannot compare to what they went through. They were losing their homes, they were losing their possessions. It's all documented through these letters. They were so worried about everything. They had to escape, death. So yeah, I just thought I'd say that, just to say.
That's something I didn't know about you, Gemma. We got to go over that sometime. But not for, I want to go over, maybe we'll be guided in this call. Before we get to Greg, Brian, I just got an intuitive hit. Have you been to my website yet? It's in, if you haven't, it's in the chat feature. Go to my website.
I haven't done any much looking into the psychiatric sobriety stuff.
I don't go a lot into withdrawals, except for a book that I wrote about 1.5 years ago. It's not published, and it's still rough draft. So there's lots of grammatical errors. But there's a book page on my website, and go click that link if you feel guided to go in that direction. And there's 2 publications. Go to the Psychiatric Shaman. It's my way of addressing the issues that you had brought up in the Zoom call, which are all very valuable issues. It's about withdrawing, reframing. Greg, buddy, how's your week been? Smile. After you smile,
how's my week been?
Or how have you been?
I had so many things to say earlier. Now I have nothing
Pick one.
to say. I don't know. It's still hard, and and sometimes I feel like kicking and screaming and crying. But
If you scream and cry, well, I'll make space for you.
you know what?
We'll make space for you.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I'm still grieving. Sometimes I'm just so happy and full of life, and sometimes I'm still sick and tired, and it seems to be both of those things. So the homeopathy is doing better. I lost one of my remedies just now. That's why I couldn't come to you, but certain things are unfolding in a way that I never thought possible. Some things are good that I never and are happening that, miracles, I'll call them. Definitely those things are happening, but at the same time, I'm still finding that I gotta, that what I've been through was no small matter, and that it's going to take it's going to take a long time to be able to digest all of that, and to move through that, and to think about that, and it's coming close to death because of these pills is no small ordeal. I'm realizing, so it's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some time. Yeah. So yeah, I'm still kind of in the thick of it, I think, but I think maybe this time next year I'll be in a better place. But I was looking at the Christmas lights, and I was proud of myself for surviving a year. So,
I know Jodi's
gonna.
but I can almost sense that Jodi wants to speak to that. She hasn't even raised her hand. She's got
Yeah,
that big
okay.
smile, even though she's muted.
Yeah.
She's gonna have to, but before she speaks to that, I have to, I don't want to monopolize this because this is your guys' Zoom call, but the hardest thing for me was faith. The hardest. I thought, I used to laugh at Christians, walking around, saying, "Oh, that's an angel sign. Oh, that's an angel sign. That's fucking, prove it to me." That is, I used to call that superstition. And I'm going to just come out and say it. No one can heal from one of these parables without a higher power. It just cannot be done. That's what all those protraction stories are. If we're, and I use the word higher power. I'm not saying, you have to believe in Jesus. That's religion. And I do agree that, some of that can be taken way off into, but there has to be anchored a spiritual component. That's the purpose of this ministry. And I don't want to go in that direction too much because Jodi's going to speak to that. Jodi's going to speak to Greg or whatever Jodi's going to speak, but it's her turn next.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think it'll really speak to Brian earlier with the gaslighting and feeling validated. This journey coming off of psych meds is so fucking hard. Like, it is the hardest thing that I've ever done. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes faith. It takes trust. It takes keep going. And we have to recognize that and validate that absolutely within ourselves. Like, that was the hardest thing I have ever gone through. And now that I'm through it, I'm so grateful that I was given that opportunity. That's the amount of healing that I've done. But I get that when you're in it, it's just fucking hard and you don't see the end. But this is where we have these choices. We can choose to dwell in the suckiness of it. And I got stuck there for a long time, and I still sometimes get stuck there because it's that familiarity. When we get used to something, whether it's good for us or not, the body wants to go back to that familiarity. And so it's an uphill battle to keep making new decisions and different decisions so that you can change your patterns. And that's fucking hard. So celebrate the heck out of yourselves. You're still here. We're still here. I'm still here. I'm still going through it. It's been a long journey. But Greg, don't just wait till next year. You're going to be a different place. Tomorrow, you can be in a different place. Later today, you can be in a different place. We can always choose to focus on something different, something more positive. So instead of focusing on how sucky it is, one of the things that really helped me was, instead of focusing, like, yeah, I could focus on how shitty I felt, but I could also focus on learning how to fix that. And so for me, I had learned a lot about how to take care of my body. And this is where I learned about the power of probiotics and the power of fasting and the power of all of these things. And so I became really proactive in my journey. So instead of dwelling on how crappy I felt, I was proactive. I was focusing on how proactive I could be. And I learned how to celebrate every step of the way. And I love how earlier Chris said, ride the wave. Yeah, ride the good ones because they're not going to last. Ride the bad ones because they're not going to last either, because life is like this. The journey that we're on, that you're on, if you're still going through it, the journey that I was on, coming off of those psych meds, it's a roller coaster like this. So ride the waves and celebrate the fuck out of yourself, because it's so challenging.
Yeah.
You know, when
Go ahead.
well, I just say when I was going through mine, this is what I needed. I needed Jodi when I was going through mine. I needed way showers. Brian, you actually got it better than I had it. Just, you know what? The other thing that
Did I
Jodi said,
respond to that? I didn't catch. I was thrown off. I didn't catch what you just responded to right now.
no, I didn't have. It's easier now in 2022 than it was when I was going through my benzo withdrawal almost 14 years ago.
Okay, it's been that long. I didn't realize. Yeah,
That was my benzo. It took me years to come off the rest of the meds, but I really don't like to go into my medication history, but I've given it 4 milligrams of Klonopin, I came off of when I was 42 years old.
That's
9
very
months where I cut.
significant. That makes sense that you are in the place you are now. So that makes sense. I'm only 3.5 years, and I know it's long. I've heard other people talk about this. One guy has protracted withdrawal symptoms at 8 years. So,
well, anyway, I want to address something that Jodi mentioned. Yeah, I'm 55 years old and I still have bad habits. I'm making peace with my bad habits so that I can develop new ones. I'm going to come out, listen, I've exposed myself 100% to YouTube and to this, so I'm not going to keep any secrets. Guess what, folks? If I can't sleep at 3 a.m., sometimes I watch porn. That's my dirtiest, nastiest secret at 55. Now that I've exposed it, this is how healing works, by the way. We come out and we expose it, but without shame and without guilt, in a safe container. I'm using all 5 of you as my safe container, so that I can get honest about it. Now that it's not a Catholic confession, and God's not going to grant me absolution. Now I'm going to make the decision to find something else to do at 3 a.m. rather than drift back into my old sexual addiction. So that's what healing looks like.
Can I say something else? A little self-obsessed about what I'm going through. I found that, that I had not honored any of my feelings before. So when, I think I shared with y'all last time that I had been fixed to the point to where I was, I guess, resentful. So I wanted to experience all my feelings. So I hear what Jodi's saying, but it's taken me a second to get to that advanced class, because I wanted to be just to feel my feelings even if they were horrible. So I'm starting to be able to get it out of it and everything, but I was unable to be there for me, you know. So I wanted to be there for me even when things sucked. I don't know if this makes sense, but you know, I wanted to be, I didn't know what I felt. So even if they were bad feelings, I wanted to feel them for a while. So it's taken me a while to get out of that, you know. And Brian's leaving. Okay. One thing that one of the remedies I'm taking is for called Century. It's for people who have never been there for themselves, but were there for other people, and in turn had anger issues. I'm using that, and I can really start to feel it. The anger is alleviating as I'm able to better be there for myself. I don't have to expect other people to be there. I think I saw the difference in me when I first started taking that. I went away from it and I came back. But that's when the anger started lifting, is when I started to realize how I can be there for myself. And that was like that was kind of one of the game changers for me. Yeah, so that was a big thing. I'm doing Al-Anon, and that helps a little bit with that, you know. But yeah, I think that's been one of the hardest things. You know, I mean, yeah, you know, when people are picked on and kind of abused a lot, it can cause anger. Yeah, you know, and I feel used and abused. I mean, one of the things I have on my wall is out of victim, get out of victim. So I don't want to stay there. I really don't. I want to do this in a noble way. But yeah, I think grief should be coming to an end for me, because I don't want to stay there forever. But you know, I had to feel that at first, but you know, I'm still not quite sure what I feel all the time, but you know, I guess I need to know that before I can correct anything. But I'm a little confused still, you know. I'm confused. Yeah, still.
Me too.
Yeah, you too. Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
Greg, you
hey,
said
guess what?
something.
Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
right. And yeah, and Greg, you said something about how you're coming into a lesson, kind of. It took you a while to get to this advanced lesson. I forget exactly what you said, but like, I think that's kind of the process that we're all going through, right? We're learning things that, like, not to use these words, but like, we're learning things that maybe we should have learned earlier, or, you know, but whatever, that's the path
Yeah.
we're on. And getting off these pills, reconnecting with ourselves, all that, the old emotions that were repressed are going to come up, the current emotions just day to day are going to come up. And how do we deal with that? And it requires learning all these new skills and new lessons. And man, yeah, the confusion. I think I mentioned the other week, like, my biggest symptom among all the symptoms that have come up, I would say the biggest one has been confusion. It's so confusing, this whole process. But hey, again, we're going through it. And like, to what I loved what you were saying, Jodi, it's like we should continuously pat ourselves on the back
Yeah.
for making it through. Like, you know, we should acknowledge how hard this is, so that we can focus on the fact that, wow, we're going through a really hard thing. That must mean we're gaining strength. And what else can I go through? And wow, maybe I'm stronger than I initially thought. And wow, you know, when I'm at work, I'll share this. When I'm at work these days and something comes up that used to really trigger me or be really challenging, or it does not challenge me in the way it used to. And I think a big reason for that is I've gone through withdrawal, and I have this much more painful experience that now has broadened my spectrum of what I've experienced and the pain I've experienced. And guess what? A lot of things fall kind of lower on that spectrum now, because that spectrum has been stretched and it's grown so much. So I think there's I don't want to go through it again, and I hope it continues to get better. And I'm sure I'll have like big, you know, I'll fall into those pits again. But I'm starting to just realize, wow, like there's there's something, I don't know, you see this throughout human history. We brought up history earlier. When people go through pain and struggle, if they can somehow make it through that, and everyone has a different way of making it through that, but if you can, there is good stuff waiting for you. It's almost like
Right.
a law of the universe that I now
Right.
believe in. There's something good about the process of pain. Pain is not great and suffering is terrible, but wow, there is something, there's a reason for it, or there's it will shape you in some way. It won't, even if it crushes you, it will crush you temporarily. I guess I'm speaking through the lens of withdrawal, not all experiences that humans can go through, but you know what I mean? I think that's, as much as we can focus on that, it's like, okay, this is a process of like refining and sharpening and kind of crushing to dust and rebuilding. That's why I love this group. That's what we're here for, right? Reframing this process.
You know,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kenneth.
you know, perfect, Chris. Let's stamp that. Let's just anchor that, because there's a mystic by the name of, it's funny. I'm remodeling what used to be, this home is owned by David Hoffmeister, but it used to be what's called the New Jerusalem, and Richard Rohr used to live in this house. Richard Rohr is he's a Franciscan priest who is bringing mysticism back into Catholicism, or I don't want to go into who he is, but he said the exact same thing. He said suffering is actually essential. Now I'm going to get a lot of flack from a lot of my new age friends who say, well, they can bypass it with a lot of mind training, and if you can, great. But from where I come from, yes, the suffering crushed my caterpillar. And listen to some of the testimonies by Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle. Both of them had to go through a collapse, and they both described the collapse to a T. Well, they haven't gone into their stories tremendously, but out of that collapse was born the butterfly. And yeah, it sucks. One of the things I wanted to speak also to Brian, then we'll get back to Greg, was I had a lot of gaslighting when I was going through my withdrawal. Somebody who hasn't been through a withdrawal is just going to say, you're not trying hard enough. You're not being spiritual enough. You're not willing enough. And I had one friend, my stepmother said, you're stewing in your juices. How's that one for gaslighting, Brian? She said to me, you're stewing in your juices. I had one life coach fire me. That was, by the way, that was the suffering that brought me to the other side, to what I call the emergence, was lots and lots of gaslighting. I'm not going to gaslight anybody here, and neither is Jodi. Jodi, you confirmed that this is the most difficult thing that a human can go through.
Well, even if we do gaslight each other, let's just, help each other through the gaslight. It's bound to happen. I'm not even saying being anti it. I just, it's just it's navigating.
Navigation. I like that word. Jodi's got her hand up, so maybe let's put Jodi. We got 5 more minutes. Jodi, go.
This talk about the essential, the need of struggle reminded me of this parable that I read a while ago called the Emperor Moth. Has anybody heard this?
I want to hear it.
I'll paraphrase really quickly. It's a bit, it's a parable, but basically a hunter came across a cocoon and a moth was struggling out of his cocoon. The hunter watched for a while, felt sorry for the moth and wanted to help. So he helped the moth out of the cocoon. It didn't go well, because you see, the moth and the butterfly, anything, they have to force, they've got to wiggle and force and struggle their way out of that cocoon, because it forces the fluid from their body into their wings and helps them to develop. It's part of their process to be born again. And so this is the parable of this, what we're talking about, that struggle, certainly for psych meds, but I can also speak on other aspects of the healing journey, but definitely right here, we'll just say for coming off of psych meds, that struggle that we go through is essential to get to the butterfly that we want to become. We don't want to go back. I don't ever want to go back to old Jodi, whether that's old Jodi a month ago or old Jodi 5 years ago or old Jodi anytime. I never want to go back to her. I want to keep moving forward, elevating forward, evolving forward, because that's the journey that our souls are on. Like beyond this earthly plane, there's a higher purpose here. And as you get into your journey of discovering how you need to discover your stepping stones, you will see the bigger picture of this little journey that we're actually going through right here, right now. We
Amen.
need to struggle.
Hallelujah. Yes.
I want to wrap up the Zoom call with that. And what was the name of that parable? I want to put that on the title.
It's called The Emperor Moth, and if you just Google it, it's a parable. It's just, yeah, the Great Emperor Moth.
That's going to be the title of Zoom call number 52 for Psychiatric Sprite. Now we're going to leave the Zoom room open, but I'm just going to wrap up the YouTube archive. This is Kenneth Price on Sunday, November 20th. I could not be more grateful to the courage that came from Greg, Chris, Brian, Jodi, and Gemma. I don't have time for small talk anymore. I want to immerse my life in courageous narratives. And I've been blessed with 5 courageous narratives. I've been blessed with five courageous, mighty companions. Basically, this is what love looks like. This moth that Jodi, just finished the Zoom call with is what we're all going through, the Emperor Moth. We are struggling out of our cocoons, but I've got to confirm what Jodi just said. All of this struggling is pumping the blood into our wings in order for us to fly away. Now, if I were some new age life coach just saying, it's all butterflies, 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 I probably would be gaslighting. But listen, folks, I was on 4 milligrams of Klonopin, and I spent 25 years of my life on more psych meds than most people will ever be. And so was Jodi. We're fine. Our brains aren't damaged. We went through a hellacious cocoon, and we're better off for it. That's why I want to end the Zoom call. Sunday, November 20th. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments below, and I need your participation. I'm not asking for money anymore because it's obvious, I'm working, but I do want a donation in as much as participation. Please join us at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sundays and 5 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. I'm going to keep this ministry going as long as people show up. So that's a wrap. We're going to keep the Zoom room open, but that's the wrap for YouTube. God bless, and may the